April 13th, 2020, 4 p.m. And Ms. Coleman, because we're all in different rooms, would you mind calling roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Miss Burney,
Here.
Ms. DeAntonac,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
Here.
Mr. Scott,
Yeah.
Mr. Simpkins,
Here.
and of course, Mr. Lee for the record.
I'm here too.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Middleton is here as well.
Yes, Mr. Middleton, for the record. Thank you, sir.
For the
Sorry
record.
about
Thank
that.
you.
Don't let them forget you, Frank. Today, this board meeting is conducted in a virtual environment as we adjust accordingly to the virus environment. As we adjust, it'll have an impact on all of us. By using Zoom.us, board members and staff will conduct the business of the day as we would do under normal circumstances. And for the public media access, this meeting is also being live streamed by use of YouTube. That said, first item is the approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anybody want to add anything or delete anything? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Should we roll call that, Ms. Coleman? Well, I tell you what,
You
if
may-
it's not unanimous, we'll roll call.
Correct.
Anybody opposed to the agenda? It is unanimous. Second item. Approval of the regular meeting minutes from March the 9th, 2020.
So move.
Second.
I have a
Mr.
motion and a
Chairman.
second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Brian. The minutes reflect the specialized assessment meeting was held without some participants. And one of them, it says is Mrs. Burney was not there. And that's incorrect. It needs to be changed. Ms. Burney never accepted the position on assignment to specialized assessment. And therefore she wasn't there since she was not a member. If the minutes could be corrected to reflect that, please.
Did you get that, Ms. Coleman?
I did, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Well, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Uh,
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Again, unanimous. Committee report, Special Assessment and Obsolescence Committee.
As I mentioned earlier, we did not have a meeting because of some absentees, and we have reasons for those who were absent, and the correction is being made now, which said that Mrs. Burney was not there because she was not there because she was not a member of the committee, that she had accepted that position. So make that correction.
Okay. And
Other word,
is that your
no, we
report?
just did. Well, we just did what Scott discussed some things, and so, but that was, we did not have a official meeting as such. No.
Okay. Personnel Review Committee.
Mr. Chairman, there was no meeting of the Personnel Review Committee.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Staff recommendations. Mrs. W.
I have no recommendations for the board today, other than our personal property status report that was submitted with the board work.
Okay. Residential, Ms. Greer.
Yes, sir. I too have nothing to submit except for what is on our status report and all the other information concerning residential will be reflected in Mr. Ross's report.
Very good. Commercial and auditors, Mr. Funk.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I have nothing to report at this time. We are close to complete with projects, but I'll just leave it at that. And I believe Alvino will cover most of the rest in his report.
Very good. Project Center, Mr. Roundtree.
Hi, do not have any recommendations, just put some information in the board work to correct the parcel numbers on 2 exempt property applications, which were approved at the last meeting. Those are in the board sheets.
Yes, I saw those. Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute. Status report. It's up to you now, Chief.
Good afternoon to everyone, first of all, and obviously we are in a new environment, my first in 38 plus years, but I want to thank each member of the board as well as the staff for the coordinations to get us in place today. I'm going to be basically brief, but hit quite a few points to be made that the board may have further updates as to the staff operations at this time. Mr. Height, if you open up number 1, please. First of all, we were required to have to give some petition to the commission in order for the board to meet in this environment. They had suspended all authorities and boards. That was the beginning of this process. Number 2, Mr. Height, at the same time, the board was granted this authorization to meet. Thank you, sir. That would be a letter from the Board of Commissioners on the authorization for your meeting today. As you can see, back then, we anticipated the board would be meeting again, obviously in May. However, we do not believe that's going to occur. We have repetition with no date certain for further meetings of the board, particularly if we're going to function in this current environment. The next one, please. Just some quick updates. What you see before you is notice as a guide from the Department of Revenue. Click onto that link, Mr. Height. That authorization gives guidance to top part of that email, please. You will notice that they're giving guidance to grant extensions regarding the 2019 income tax filing, pushing that deadline out to July 15. And motor vehicle registrations, that's the old birthday method in which licenses, tag licenses expired March 16th through May 14th, would also be extended out to May 15th. Close it, please. Next. In addition to that, there has been placed an order from the governor himself regarding the extension to conservation use assessments, as we commonly refer to as CUVRs, as well as to the Forest Land Protection Act, which we commonly refer to as FLIPA. These specialized assessments have been granted extensions out to June 1 versus the April 1 deadline. You can close it and go to the next file, please. I wonder if I might, Mr. Chairman and board members, acknowledge that because of the changing environments, we early on made a TAO designation host for this type of operation. That would be Mr. Kevin Height himself, who is functioning with us today. But I also want to express my appreciation to IT Augusta, Glenn and his team for the wonderful support that they've given us in this process as well. That would be, thank you so much, Glenn, if you hear me out there. Next, please. I sent out notice. This is just a reference. You can move on to the next one, Mr. Hyde, that years of service employees are being recognized as a part of the county's plan. And we had 3 members of the team that qualified for those years of service adjustments. What you're saying now is just a reflection back on your 2019 appeal record. That gives you a picture of how the appeals came in by week, as you can see, where a large percentage of greater than 50% came in the final week of filing. And you can see also on that same page, the typical filed appeal versus the online filed appeals. We were the first in Georgia last year under the Wind Gap group to allow property owners and taxpayers to file appeals online if they chose to. The next page, please. This page gives you a quick summary of how that activity has occurred in the upper left-hand corner. You can see the domination of the appeals by residential, followed by commercial, then land. And you also can notice as well the status of those accounts from resolve out to pending hearing officer cases. Down below, you get a better perception of the value impacts of those classes. In blue is residential, green is the assessments by those property owners, and then the red represents the final valuation set, the aggregate positions. Next file, please. This one and all these files were sent to the board members out on Saturday as a part of this report. So you may want to go back later if you're not on your PCs at this time. But the file here shows you the historical patterns of the appeals being filed over the years with an indicator that the difference between 2010, when we started this process monitoring, through the current year of 19, your appeal filings are down in excess of 67%. Next file, please. This is a reference from the Department of Revenue regarding your 2019 sales ratio study. As you can see, that was initial date of March to have this filed back to the Department of Revenue. That has been granted an extension because of the coronavirus to the end of the week, and we will have it back to the department no later than Thursday of this week ahead of that deadline. Next page, please. Along the way, we're tracking your fuel usage. You're showing 18, 19, and 20 here. All the early indicators are that in spite of the rebound work that's been going on and the additional personnel in the field, we feel very comfortable that we will come in within budget in spite of this additional field work being done. And we're pleased to say that since tracking this since 2011, The budget is down greater than 12% in fuel costs. Next file, please. This is an overview to give you an idea regarding the neighborhood recoding that is being done for revaluation work of residential properties. This is an area that we have had to take a step back. Our original target number of neighborhoods were 1/3 of the county at 187 neighborhoods. As of this date, we have, as you can see, processed through 132 of those. When you see the dates and then the numbers to the right of those references, that's the average per day impact of reviewing and getting through the neighborhood work. That is the summary, all the databases. Mr. Hyde, hit on one of the databases so that they will get some idea where all the summary comes from, please. Scroll it, please. These are how the neighborhoods are processed in a file database, and based upon the entry of workloads, that would impact the summary information that's pertaining to the original report. Next file, please. One of the processes of what the residential team is doing, each of the neighborhood reviews have a list of all the following tabs as a means of tracking the work. The first tab clearly shows what the neighborhood is, and the mass appraisal. Hit a couple of tabs and just scroll through for me. It gives you assumptions and limitations. Please keep moving. The scope of the work. These are just examples of what goes through the whole process for each and every neighborhood that's being reviewed for the reval process. You can close that, please, and go to the next file. After the staff has initially gone to the field, the first ratio study that you're looking at is a very unique neighborhood with small properties with certain age to them. But the 2019 stats is the position that was in place prior to the actual review of the neighborhood. As you can see, that the median ratio or the measure to market is below the 95 percentile. The COD measuring the uniformity is unacceptable, so is the price-related differential. When you look at the middle chart, it is the result of what happens after all the field work was reviewed, each parcel was corrected. However, at the end is the post-sales ratio analysis. In this instance, the removal of one sale was bringing all of the sales closer to the central tendency of 40%. And as you can see, now the 100% estimate value is above 98%. The uniformity is well within acceptable ranges. The max that should be is for residential is less than 15%. This one now is less than 9%. And the preferential measurement for biasness is almost perfect at 1.0 plus. Closing, show the next example. There are several that I profile for you today to give you an idea of how detailed the staff work has gone into the neighborhood revaluation. This particular one that you're looking at also started at approximately 80% of the fair market value, but the COD and the PRD were both within acceptable ranges. If you move over after they finished the field work, even it brought the level of the market value more acceptable. But after dismissing one sale, the final opinion is at a 98.41 market level, and COD and PRD being acceptable. If I might, if you would scroll down to the further between the middle file, this chart gives you an idea of how tight the parameters relative to per square foot and size within that neighborhood. In some neighborhoods, you will note that there are 4 distinctions between what's going on, adding to the difficulty of the mass appraisal approach, but those factors are also considered here. I won't be overly redundant. If you would jump to the final one, please.
While he's changing, Mr. Ross, can I ask you just a curiosity question, please?
Absolutely, Ms. Bernie.
The ratio values, are those computed by several different employees, or is there one person that does those calculations and they turn it into you?
No one does the calculations. All those are formally driven through Project Central. Once the review of the work is done by staff, it gets further review by the supervisor working with their team to finalize the quality control of that process. The final piece is the post analysis. They don't actually calculate the ratios. The ratio study that you see is a byproduct of them correcting databases within that neighborhood. I hope that was clear enough, Ms. Bernie, that they really don't do the calculation of the ratios. They make sure that all of the prospective reviews of the property themselves, the sales within neighborhoods are considered whether they're fair market value or outliers to be removed. And once they make those decisions, Keldra, if you would go, for instance, to the search file on that particular one that's being shown now, the data that shows the sales, tab 1. As you can see in this particular case, scroll out to the end, please. And I'm working from my phone and I just lost the view. But you see out at the end of that, Messiah, if you would show the end of the report where, where the decisions were made.
Yeah.
I can't see them, but you'll see where I believe in that case, there was some rehab work even after some of the sales. Those are the kind of detailed reviews that are done to validate each and every parcel within the study of the neighborhoods. And once a removal of a sale is done, it correspondingly will modify the staff.
I mean, I recognized it as statistical calculations, but I just kind of didn't remember whether certain data points were put in and there was a program from the state that automatically calculated it, or were we doing this in the department?
No, the state did not provide this kind of in detail operations for us, thanks to Project Central, headed up by Scott Roundtree, as well as my project analyst, Mr. Height. These are the type of enhancements the team building that has been going on. Even though they are structurally behind the scenes with this, every member of the team is vastly important in every piece of the process, starting with the division supervision. That would be Ms. Nancy Greer, Assistant Deputy Chief for Residential, as well as the 4 supervisors on that team, in addition to the 8 field residential appraisers.
Well, I'm gonna apologize because this could have been shortened if I had asked my question a different way, which would have been, was this under Mr. Scott's purview? Okay, I'm good. Go on.
Next file, please. I hope you guys could get me back to it because I can't see the posting. So I'm not sure what you're showing at this time. Thank you very much. For your 2020 digest, this is the assessment change list development as of this Saturday, April the 11th, showing you the movement of new accounts, increased valuation parcels, decreased parcels, and to date, no change parcels, with indicators of the prior year and current year dollar amounts and the differences in those two. The stats there is hopefully clear that right now you're showing this is just in your real growth area, 5.93%, with a net of 4.95 in the movement of additions to the file. Scroll down a little bit for me, Mr. Hyde. Here you're seeing a compilation of the 2020 digest sectors back in December. The pre-bill mobile home digest was finalized that added 629,964. The actual pre-bill mobile home digest for 2020 is 34.9 million. And as of the TCO report, you can see the consequent number 631.30, which is a difference of $156 from the original file sent to them. The real property net of 517 million is there as of today. A personal property, which I'm going to go back to momentarily, is in the process with an April 1 deadline to be filed with us. Team is working diligently on those accounts. I want to point out right now that TVAT, the change to the motor vehicle, moving further and further from the property digest, which is the birthday tax, this year dropped another 28.5 million. Excuse me. Since our tracking of this file, since 2013, the property digest under TAVT has dropped $761 million. And therefore you can see timber and heavy equipment for the 2020 digest, where they sit, and as we speak, a net impact of approximately $490.4 million in movement into the digest. Thus far, there's still a great deal of work to be completed prior to getting to your consideration at next month's meeting. Next month, file, please. The file you're now looking at is a run of growth by digest class. Beneath it is the same reference by tax district, but you'll note that the grand total numbers are the same. Your non-inflationary, which is growth to the digest or windfall, is currently sitting at 153.4 million. And your inflationary, which is the impact regarding the rollback meal calculation, a decision of the taxing authorities, the school board, and the county commissioners, is currently sitting at 336 million. Because of the projects that are currently in process, to the right, you will see the commercial inflationary growth as known in the file to date. The apartments or an estimate issue to be finalized. And then you're looking at motel, hotels, and storage facilities. Without overemphasizing it, the rest of the file will speak for itself in terms of your non-inflationary growth with estimates, as well as the non-inflationary growth and an estimate to the entire file. If you drop down a little bit more for me, that's all right. The total movement of the file to date is estimated at $1.1 billion. That's value, not taxes, just to make sure that's understood. I believe that's the last file. Mr. Hyde, if you would go back to the personal property file and open up some photos for those who are not here to be able to see. April 1 was a deadline. What you're seeing initially in that photo is processing a mail that was just got opened today. Please just flip through. From one area to the next area, to another area, to another area, to working on now trying to get entry is an effort to recover the fact that we've had to endure an emergency call of the city by the mayor and a stand distance order that's been ordered by the governor. We have not been granted any extensions. April 1 was the deadline for returns, exemptions to be filed. However, I am confident with the team that we will present to the board in a timely fashion a 2020 digest for consideration. We are estimating still that assessment notices will be mailed in mid to late May. The worst case scenario to make the timetable still function is to have assessment notices in the mail by May 29. All that work you see in the photos previously and more, that digest, the business personal property, that issue will come to you at your June meeting. If not, when ready, we will have to have it to you no later than your July meeting in order to meet the ultimate deadline of having the full digest down the hall to the tax commissioner's office by July 15th. Mr. Chairman, that's the update from the team. Thank you for tolerating our effort to keep the board informed in spite of these current challenges that we have. But again, I want to express my appreciation to the team for their due diligence and thank the board for your patience. Any questions?
I don't have any.
Well, if not, I'd like to, for the entire board, express our appreciation to our staff and to the IT department staff for being able to pull this off, especially with folks like me who are not very technically savvy. But thank you to our team and to the IT team. Are there any other matters?
I just have one question I would like to ask, and that's, I know that Caveat was canceled, and I imagine it was costly for them to cancel it. Did we lose any budgetary monies, or was everything just canceled out?
Everything was just canceled. There was no registration or any monies remitted at the time of cancellation due to the coronavirus. So we didn't lose anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Coleman, is there any other date set for that caveat?
Not as of yet. The last word was that they were considering sometime in November, but we do not have any confirmation as to any rescheduled dates yet.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman, it's
Yes.
Brian.
Yes,
I
Brian.
just would like to make a comment and thank Keldrick for all his help.
Absolutely.
For some of us older mentally challenged people,
Yeah,
this would not be possible. If it hadn't been for Keldrick, I'd be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. But thank you, Keldrick.
very well. Thank you, guys. Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
regarding the work that the staff has been working on for the last 2 to 3 years to prepare for the processing of reval reviews. If we hear no opposition at this time, the staff will proceed further with finalizing these matters, which has to get done by your next board meeting. So if there is no opposition to what we presented thus far, we will take that their support for us to continue the process and present to you at the May meeting.
is there any opposition?
No.
Okay. Well, let's move forward. In the past, when we had the mortgage issue a couple of years ago, the state took a position rather than us. So maybe we'll just see if they do that again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other matters? Mr. Mills, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we'll adjourn this meeting.
There is a motion.
Second.
There's a second.
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Opposes nay. It passes unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.
Be safe, everybody.